What's up guys, welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Erdell, and in today's video we're going to go over one of my favorite responses against the move d4 for black with the Nimzo/Bogo-Indian type systems. And it all starts with knight f6, and following c4 we now see e6 looking to eye the b4 square with our dark colored bishop. And now guys, white really has two main options, playing knight f3 and playing knight c3. Now in one of our last videos we went over the Nimzo-Indian, in which white plays knight c3, and then we play bishop b4, pinning that knight, and we went over all the opening theory there. But in today's video, we're going to go over the Bogo-Indian, in which white plays knight f3, and guys, we're still going to play bishop b4, now with check. And really guys, white has three options: bishop d2, knight bd2, and knight c3. Now knight c3 actually transposes into the three knights variation of the Nimzo-Indian Defense, which we covered in our other Nimzo-Indian video. So today guys, we're going to focus on bishop d2 and knight b2 and how to be prepared for both of these moves. Let's first take a look at bishop d2, which is the most popular option for white. And now guys, we're not going to take the bishop, but we're going to play queen e7, protecting the bishop on b4. And the most popular option for white is g3, looking to fianchetto the bishop on f1. But the obvious question is, what happens if bishop takes b4? What on earth is going on? Well, we're going to take with the queen, and as y'all can tell, we're attacking the king on e1, as well as the pawn on b2 and the pawn on c4. So now white has to lose something. Following the move queen d2, we really have three options: taking the queen and transposing into a pretty basic and even endgame, with both sides not really having any advantages or weaknesses. The second option is to take the pawn and in return allow white to have an advantage in development. And the last one is to play queen e7, holding even material but keeping the game complex. Let's first take a look at queen takes c4, snatching the pawn. The best continuation for white now is e3, developing the pawn and attacking the queen on c4. And following queen c6, as you guys can see, the queen on c6 is a little bit awkwardly placed. So following a move like knight c3, we're going to castle kingside, play a6, preventing knight b5. And following bishop d3, play d5, continue with queen d6 and bishop d7. And as you guys can see, black is up a pawn, but white does have an advantage in development. It just depends if you personally are comfortable in a position where your opponent has a slight advantage in development, but you're up a pawn. If you're comfortable in that line, take the pawn. Take that pawn on c4 in a heartbeat. However, let's take a look at the move queen takes d2 with check. What if black wants to simplify this into a somewhat endgame-like position? Well guys, we're next going to play the move b6, looking to eye the square on b4 with both the knight and the bishop on b7. And following bishop e2, we can play d6, knight bd7, continue with c5. And I actually really like black's game here. I would prefer to be black. Obviously this position is pretty much dead even, but I think black's bishop on b7 is much better than the bishop on e2. Not to mention c5, a very nice move, preventing white from expanding on the queen side of the board. We can next play a move like king e7, get the rooks involved, and we're playing a fun game of chess. But honestly, you're probably not going to see bishop takes b4 too often because most white players don't want to allow black to have so many options. I mean guys, after queen takes b4, we can go into a dead even endgame, we can go a pawn ahead, we can keep things even. I mean, there's just really no reason for white to take the bishop. It really just gives the game into black's hands, the direction that it's going to go. So usually white will play the move g3, looking to fianchetto the bishop. And now we're going to continue with knight c6. And following bishop g2, we're now going to take with bishop takes d2 with check. And following knight takes d2, continue with d6. Now I know some of you are probably thinking this really does look passive for black. I mean, look at the position. We have a queen on e7, two knights, and a pawn on e6 and d6. I mean, what on earth is this? The hedgehog? Guys, this isn't the hedgehog, but it is similar in some aspects. But what we're going to look to do is expand with a5, e5, and look to create some counterplay in this game. Following the move castling kingside, we're now going to push with a5, protecting the square on b2, not allowing white to create space on that side of the board. And if white pushes with e4, we're not going to allow white to play e5, crushing our position and making us even more cramped than we are right now. Instead, we're going to play e5, fighting for control of the center. And now the best move for white is easily the move d5, in which we're going to play knight b8 And usually, bringing a knight to b8 wouldn't be the best idea. I mean, we just developed the knight. Why are we bringing it back? Well, why we did this was we over-pushed white's pawns. As you guys can tell, the white pawns are very far up the board, and now the dark squares are weak. c5 is a weak square, d4, b4, b6. We're going to look to control all of these dark squares. And following the move knight e1, I'm going to show you two continuations. First, the main line, in which black plays castling kingside. And now the idea is after knight d3, we're going to play knight a6 again, fighting for the dark squares of the board with this knight. And following queen c2, play c6. And after d takes e6, take with the b pawn. And following a move like queen c3, play knight c7, and we're just playing chess. I personally think that even though this is the main line for the Bogo-Indian, I personally think that it's pretty passive for black. So instead, I'm going to show you guys an alternate option to give black an attacking edge in this game. Now guys, as I mentioned, usually black will just play a move like castling kingside, knight a6, c6, but I personally really like this idea of h5. It hasn't been played very often, but even at the master and grandmaster level, this move has had huge success. Here black looking to expand with h4 and then h3 or h takes g3 based on how white responds. And here the best move for white is by far h3, preparing for h4, in which now white can play g4, but now we're going to maneuver the knights with knight bd7, eyeing that c5 square. And after knight d3, play knight h7, followed by knight g5. And I really like black's game here. Black has complete control of the dark squares, a space advantage. And honestly, it's hard for white to come up with an obvious plan here. It's hard to push on the queen side of the board because these pawns are so locked up. And we have a tall pawn on g2, as the bishop really doesn't have much activity. So we're going to continue to push, continue to take control of the dark squares, develop our pieces, and we're just playing chess. I think that any Bogo-Indian player should be happy in this position. So guys, that covers the move bishop d2, in which we're going to play queen e7. What about the move knight bd2 with the Grunfeld variation? Well, now guys, we're not going to play queen e7. There's really no reason to play this right away, as the bishop on b4 doesn't have to be protected. So instead, we're just going to play castling kingside. And now a3 at the grandmaster level is by far the most popular option, and really it makes a whole lot of strategical sense. Here the white pawn is attacking the bishop on b4, hoping for bishop takes d2, in which then white will have the bishop pair and then a b4 push in the near future. But guys, we're not going to take that knight, but instead bring the bishop back to e7. However, what if in this position, white doesn't play a3, but plays a move like e3? Are we still going to play bishop e7? Well, guys, we're not, because this would give white an extra tempo. So now we're going to continue again with our b6 and bishop b7 idea, eyeing that square on e4. And following castles, I like the move c5, fighting for the center. We have an active bishop on b4, an active pawn on c5, attacking that centralized pawn on d4, and an active fianchettoed bishop on b7. And guys, now following the move a3, we'll take on d2, play a move like d6, and following bishop c3, we now see this fianchetto pay off, as we can push our knight into e4, a very active square. And now really, I think the best option for white is to take that knight. The knight is so active here, guys. Take that knight off the board. But now we have bishop takes e4, and following knight d2, we have bishop b7. A pretty even game here, but I like black's chances. But what about the move a3? So as I mentioned, guys, we're going to play bishop e7, and following the move e4, we're now going to play d6. Now, if the last variation seemed passive, this probably seems very passive. We have a knight on f6, we castled kingside, a bishop on e7, locked in behind e6 and d6 pawns. But guys, black is completely okay here. After bishop e2, I recommend a rare move, which is knight fd7. Knight bd7 is the most popular option, but honestly, knight bd7 has really struggled in actual tournament play. I think the better option is knight fd7. It's honestly much more active, and the idea here is after castling kingside, we're now going to play e5, attacking the center of the board, and eventually looking for a f5 and f4 push. Now really, white has two options: to allow black to take the pawn, or to play d5. Now if white takes the pawn on e5, we take back with the d pawn, and I really like black's chances. What if d5 is played? Well guys, in the chance of d5, we're now going to play a5, prohibiting white from playing b4, in which we can simply take the pawn and then snatch the rook on a1. So b4 can't be played for white. So now we see b3, in which we can play knight c5, a very nice square for the knight. And after knight e1, push with f5. We have f takes e4 ideas, f4 ideas. We're playing attacking chess. And I honestly think that black has a clear edge here. So that's if white pushes. What if white doesn't push and plays a move like knight b1, for example? Well, now we're going to take the pawn on d4, break things open, and following knight takes c4, play knight c6. The idea here is that after bishop e3, we're going to place our e7 bishop on f6, and then our knight on d7 on c5. And all of a sudden, black has a pretty active game. A solid knight pair, a bishop on f6, really fighting for the center of the board. And at least for me, when I first saw this position, I was wondering what on earth is stopping white from just playing b4 and just trampling over black's setup. But guys, b4 actually falls into a trap, as now black has bishop takes d4. And after bishop takes d4, knight takes d4. Now if queen takes d4 is played, we can bring this knight to b3, attacking both the queen and the rook, and we're going to be up in exchange. And following the move b takes c5, we take the pawn on c5, and here black is up a pawn with a very strong knight on d4. This is a winning position for black. If you'd like to learn the Nimzo-Indian, click the video to the left. If you'd like to explore more chess openings in general, click the playlist to the right. Leave a comment to let me know what other videos you'd like to see covered on this channel. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.